Hello and welcome to the Liverpool Connection podcast. I'm your host Daz and I've got my co-host Steve with me, and our special guest for today is Paul Moran, and everybody should know is he's the son of, and I will definitely call him a legend because he is, Mr. Liverpool, Ronnie Moran. Hiya Paul.
Hiya, nice to be here.
I guess we'll just delve right into it. One of my first questions I usually ask people, obviously I know you're a Liverpool fan, so I don't need to really go into that. But what was one of the first times you went to Anfield?
Well, the first times I would have gone to Anfield would have been when my dad was with the reserves, probably 1967, 68, when I was 5, 6 years old, because I used to go to reserve games with my dad. The first team game I ever went to was with my dad in 1969. I went to watch Liverpool v Notts Forest at Anfield in the February. That was my first ever game, and I remember sitting in the press box with my dad watching the game. That was the first time I ever went to a first team game at Anfield.
And a lot of the viewers, they'll never experience Anfield, just because of things. But how did you feel, as a 6-year-old boy walking up and going through those gates and then seeing the pitch?
Well, funnily enough, obviously with having been, it was like going to work with my dad's work, so it wasn't a massive culture shock thing for me, where you'd seen it on obviously the late 1960s. There was only Match of the Day hadn't really started the mass coverage like it did, and things were always in black and white anyway back then, so you'd not really got an image of what the ground looked like that you would open it lived up to. Obviously people who go to their first games are, people say, well, the grass was so green and everything was perfect. The Forest game, if you ever look back at it, it was actually, the pitch was covered in snow and the touch lines were marked out in blue. Say blue whitewash, which doesn't make sense, but there weren't white lines, there was blue lines, and they played with an orange ball, and I remember that. And I remember Forest had blue kit on, which was the same as the blue lines on the pitch. So that's the things I do remember. I remember it being freezing cold as well, because it was February.
Yeah, that's always the worst time, to go to matches, is February. It's always cold.
January, February is the worst time.
Yeah, I know, and bit of snow as well doesn't help. So with your dad, I did not know this until I read yesterday. 49 years with Liverpool.
Yeah,
that's madness.
Well, he signed schoolboy forms in 1949, and then he signed professional in the January 1952. And then his first game was, I think it was the year later, his first game was Derby County. And then he got in the first team proper in about 1955, around that era. And then he basically played for the next 10 years, apart from when he was out through injury. So he played 379 games for the first team.
Yeah, that's just crazy, because, he's been a player, reserve coach, caretaker manager twice, a physio. What else has your dad not done? Obviously, he's not done the commentating, and he hasn't done.
He did. No, he went when he retired in '98. Liverpool LFC TV got him on, and he commentated. Not commentated. Obviously, he was the analyzer, as they call him, but he was the analyzer for about 2 or 3 years.
Oh wow!
He actually did the famous Gary McAllister free kick at Goodison. He was at that game, and you could hear him when the free kick went in. He didn't say anything, but you could hear him. The last minute winner in the 3-2 game, when Gary McAllister scored with the free kick, when he went to play it, and the goalie went for where he thought he was going to play it, and he zoomed it into the near post, and that my dad was actually commentating or co-commentating on that game. He was only on Liverpool LFC TV, and he was on Radio Merseyside a few times as well, and Radio City, the 2 local radio stations. So he did that probably overall about 4 or 5 years after he retired. till about 2004, something like that.
Good Lord.
So he did do commentary there. You didn't know that, did you?
No, I didn't. Has he done George Sefton's job?
No, he never did that. His taste in music was marching bands or Doris Day. So you were a bit stuck there. Like, there wouldn't be much playing Doris Day in the late 1970s, having Doris Day on and the Royal Grenadier Guards marching up and down outside. So he never asked him to do that, to be fair. That was one of the few things he didn't do.
I was reading, tell us a little bit about the smash window, because I think that's brilliant. Just the way your dad would take that into the training part. If it happened in training.
What do you mean when I broke the window?
Yeah.
No, well, it was he bought a goal. My mum and dad bought me a goal. It was 5 foot by 10 foot, 5 foot high, 10 foot wide. It had proper metal goal, pieced together with a net. And in the back garden in the house we lived in, Thornton, which is north of Liverpool, I hit a shot which hit the bar, flicked up, hit the roof of the shed, and then went through a window. So it wasn't just, a clumsy 25-yarder into right straight through the window. It hit a few things on the way. But I said people used to say my dad would be mad about it, but I think one of the things it proved, at least I could strike the ball. Now, whether you particularly wanted to strike it through the window or not, another matter. Obviously, he didn't want me to do that every day, but he couldn't play the other way in the garden because that was neighbours were at the end of the garden. So if he played the other way, there was a danger of breaking something in their garden. So we always thought it was safe. If you're going to break anything, break something in our house. But you did try to not break things, obviously, like it wasn't there. But my dad was fine about it. He was obviously he's not going to congratulate you for doing it and say well done, but he didn't get too upset about it, to say the least.
Yeah,
used to try and not upset him anyway, because basically the life we had, or I had, because of my dad, just going to games, going to A team and B team games on a Saturday morning, going to the first team or the reserves in the afternoon or whatever. There was too much to lose by being a rebel, if you like. It was never a thing where the lads would be doing something, we're going out, so I'm not bothered, I'm not doing that. But we'd be all right, we'd be back by so-and-so. So no, I'm not doing it. I'm going to London on Saturday, and my dad's getting us the tickets, so I'm not going to wind him up or do something that might go wrong here. So I wouldn't say we were saints type of thing, but there's certain limits where you knew you had to stop. So you didn't want to jeopardise any tickets or any trips to the ground or anything. So,
well, you've been to a lot of home and away matches, right?
Yeah.
And you still go?
Yes, still there. Home games. We went to Wembley last season, the Charity Shield. Went to every home game apart from we were away when we played West Ham in the second to last home league game when we won 3-2. But we were away then, so that was the only one I missed at home. I don't go to the away games, I go to home games. So the last game I went to was the Atletico Madrid Champions League game, which I've got a book which all my scores, all the games in. I've been to 1,025 Liverpool games.
Wow.
The first team games, that is not every Liverpool did. That's competitive first team games.
Wow. That's mad. I've probably been to maybe 70.
Well, the thing is, I do appreciate how lucky I am to have gone to that many, because it's not something where you've got to even getting tickets for finals. And I used to just say, can we have 3 or can we have 4, and you'd more or less get them. Like, don't go mad with them, you know what I mean? You wouldn't go like we played Everton in '86 in March in and say, can I have 50 tickets for the final for all my mates? You just use your brains and say, can we just have like the usual 4 type of thing? Because we used to go to all the away games at that time. I used to go to away games in the late 70s and most of the way through the 80s. And my dad, the players that get complimentary tickets for away games, but they wouldn't always use them. So on the day of the match, I'd have my ones off my dad, and we'd go and meet him at the away ground before, an hour before kick-off. And if there's any spare comps, he used to give us them to give to the lads, to the ones I was with on the train or lads who knew who were down there, we'd always get spare comps off them. So it used to end up being quite a joke. There used to be about 20 of us walking up to the players' entrance, and then if there's only 10 or there's only 5, you say, well, you'll sort about yourselves. So it used to be quite good. But the players never used to bother, because at that time, I don't know any of the current team. I've never really met. I'm sort of half met Jordan Henderson not long after my dad died. But the current team I don't know any of. But the teams of the 70s and 80s and the early to mid-90s, I knew quite a few of the players. Then I used to go to Anfield to reserve games with my dad, you know, and various other things. But I'd like to sort of meet the current team, but you don't get the chance now. It doesn't work out like that.
Yeah, they're all like, you know, in their own little bubble. Not like, you know, the 60s and 70s where, you know, the players would just go, you know, in the parking lot and you could just walk up to them.
I do think as well now, a lot of the, not problem, because it's not the right word, but it's people, it's the social media is a lot of the trouble with the current footballers now, and even famous people, if you like. You know, there's always someone willing to get a picture of them or bother them into a reaction, if you like. You know, because you say something, so-and-so, he was horrible when I met him. But if you're on the phone getting filmed, that's on the internet of you being horrible. It was like that time the Liverpool players were trying to get on the coach and people were trying to get autographs. And he specifically said, we're not doing autographs. We've got to get on this bus, just for whatever reason it was. But then security didn't keep the people back. The people were by the doors of the bus. The players are getting on. They've been told by the club officials not to sign autographs or stop. So then there's a video of the players brushing past people and ignoring them. And then on the social media, it's all, oh, look at this selfish, terrible reaction from the players. You know, this is meeting their fans and ignoring them. And it was like a set-up thing. And the players are weary of that, and that's why they've done it now. So the coach used to pull up outside the players' entrance and he'd not run the gauntlet type of thing, but you'd be going in between people. Now they drive under the stand, and that's why most clubs do that now. They've got it so it's all separate because of people trying to catch them out and trying to do things. You know, they'll pull them as they go past, and then you're walking along and someone tugs your arm, you react and turn around. All the camera sees is your reaction to it. You know, it's like, I'm not naming any players as an example of it, but you can say he turned around and he looked like he was going to have a go at me. So, you know, the bit you don't see is you pulling his arm in the first place or saying something to him before you turn the camera on, having a go at him. Yeah, well, a friend of mine, he's seen Phil Thompson in Liverpool. And, you know, be careful how I phrase this, but a lad, let's say a friend of mine, a lad in you, he said, I met Phil Thompson, he was horrible to us. And I said, well, that's not the Phil Thompson I know. Now, bear in mind, I talked to you before about knowing players from the 70s. I know Phil Thompson. And his wife used to sit by us at games in the same tickets. And I said to the lad, well, you know, what did you say to him? He said, well, the lift opened and I said he used to be a crap player and he had a go at me. I said, well, what do you want him to say? No, oh, thanks for that. Yeah, all the best. He told him to go away type of thing, you know, and you can imagine what he said. But I said, the lad said, I told him he was rubbish and thought he wasn't a very good player, not when he played. I don't know what you want him to say, but the way he's saying it to people is, I met Phil Thompson, he wasn't very nice.
Well, it's the same with Stevie as well, you know, because he lives in Formby, where I'm from as well. Yeah. And a little lad and his mum had come up to him in the shops, and Stevie was just like, you know, I'm with my family. And then the woman started like having a go at him, like, this is my little boy, you know. He's just like, well, I'm with my family. Just
with my
people just don't understand, you know. They just think, you know, that they should just sign autographs.
Well,
on cue.
There's a thing about, again, on cue is a good phrase, because there's a thing about getting the right time. If you're looking at someone, you know, we've been on cruises. Been on cruise with my wife and my mum and dad, you know, about 10, 12 years ago. And there's famous celebrities on some of the cruises. And you go and there was one, I'll say famous celebrities, football-wise. Alan Mullery, who played for England, you know, manager of Fulham and such like, he was on the cruise. And he knew me dad. And I said, I'd like to meet him. And we literally timed it for the time when we thought it was all right. You know, there's times when he's having meals or he's talking to us, so we just ignore that. But some people just go marching up to people and stick a piece of paper in front of them and say, yeah, I'll sign this. And you think, well, just have a little. The best thing now is no one does autographs now. It's all selfies. It's all pictures. Everyone always gets pictures done, which is quicker. But, you know, it's not the players' fault sometimes, but the players get a bad press about it. And so, sometimes some of them are, you know, some of them can be awkward and that, and some of them are unfriendly, for want of a better word. But that it's certainly in the minority. But all the ones I've ever met over the years, I've been going to games and with my dad behind the scenes, because we used to always like youth team games at Anfield in the FA Youth Cup, because you'd go and whoever they were playing, like they played Man United, now this, like, you know, people about Ferguson, Alex Ferguson. I met him with my dad at one of the games, and he's, you know, one of the nicest people I've ever met. So obviously what he says, a lot of the times on the television, he was saying things which he do to protect his club and look after his club. He's not going to say things against his own club, and then everyone's up in arms about what he's saying, you know, even that knocking Liverpool off the pitch. But a lot of it is in answer to a question. You know, do you think you'll be able to knock Liverpool off their perch? Or do you think you'll be able to take over from Liverpool? And if he says no, then all the United fans will say, well, what's he in charge of us for then if he doesn't think he's going to do that? Then on the press, it's phrased differently. So, I don't know.
Hey, Paul, I have a couple questions for you. I wanted to, first of all, thank you for coming on our podcast. Yeah. For Daz and I, you know, we really enjoy bringing on guests that can link the present day club to the Shankly days, because it seems more and more that Jurgen Klopp is being compared to Shankly, and just the methods and the social aspects of being part of the city and the club. And, you know, recently we had George Scott on and George Sefton, and that's kind of helping bridge the history. Yep. And we're trying to bring as much history to the listeners and viewers of our podcast, because it is so important as a Liverpool supporter to really know that past history. And I wanted to ask you, you wrote, the book came out in 2017, I believe, Mr. Football. Yeah. And so I wanted to ask you about the decision-making process that you had to write the book at that time. I know your dad had already retired, and that was really so I didn't know if you guys had talked about that many years before, and then it just became the time to do it.
Yeah, you're right. What you say, we thought about it for a while, and obviously got no background to producing a book, if you like. Not literally producing it, but getting a book written. I was with my dad. We went to a former players do at the Hilton in Liverpool, and a lad come up to us, a lad called Carl Clementi. I didn't know him. He obviously recognised me dad, and we were talking for a bit, and then he said, I really want to do a book about your dad. This was probably early 2016. And I said, well, I've always wanted to do one, but, you know, it's one of them things, it's never going to happen if someone else doesn't do it with us, type of thing. So he said, him and his friend Arnie, a lad called Arnie, who lives in Iceland, were keen to do this. They did this Liverpool FC history.net, which they're part of, which is, if you ever need to know who scored in a game or who played in a game or who we played against, that's the website to go on. Mm-hmm. And they said, we fancy doing the book about your dad. So we talked about it for a bit, and then he started sending me questions, emails of basically hundreds of questions. I'd answered them, and then about 9 months later, we had enough for the book. Arnie was doing the chapters as we went along. We went through various time zones in the book, when my dad was an apprentice there, then a player, then a coach, and the reserves, as we said before. And it took about a year to get organised, and then we were looking at how we were going to publish it. And Carl spoke to, I think it's called Media something, and the media firm, and they work with Liverpool. They do the programmes now at Anfield, and they were interested in it. They spoke to the club, and then the club got behind the book and said it'll be an official Liverpool FC publication. And it just went from there, and then we brought it out. on the 28th of February 2017, which was actually my dad's birthday. But he was in a care home by then. My dad, the dementia had got too bad for him to stay with my mum and be looked after by the family, because it was like a 24-hour thing. And then we brought it out on his birthday. We had a launch party in the Liverpool shop in the city centre, which was good, with Phil Neal, Alan Kennedy, Phil Thompson, Roy Evans, and Jamie Carragher, who was still playing. He turned up as well, which was good of him, because he wasn't part of it. He just heard about it and turned up for us. And then the book come out, and it did quite well. You know, I think they did 5,000 copies of it, and there's not many left to buy now on Amazon. So
yeah, there's only one copy left. I saw today. So
is there still? I think they do that, you know, because there was one a few weeks ago. And I think they just have it that there's one, so everyone, if you want someone to buy it, they dive in and buy it, thinking it's the last one, and it isn't. But,
but great marketing.
Well, it was nice. We used to go to the city centre, and you've got Waterstones in the city centre, and W.H. Smith, and my dad's books in there, and it's got my name on the front page as well. The sleeves got with Paul Moran on it. So it's one of the proudest things, other than my family. Sure. It's probably the thing I'm the most proud of that we've managed to produce, because obviously could only do it answering the questions because my dad had told me all the stuff in the past, and I've obviously tried to keep a good memory of what my dad's told me over the years, but it worked out really well. It seems to be quite well received. There doesn't seem to be much nastiness about it on the what do they call the reviews on Amazon, you know, where people put on the reviews. It doesn't seem, I think it's had one where a fella said, well, one fella actually said there was too much about football matches in it. So I don't know what he was expecting. I don't know what he thought it was going to be about, but he said there was too many mundane football matches in it. So,
well, there's always one of those people, right? So we kind of disregard them.
Tries to find out where he lived, and not literally find out what area of the country he lived in, type of thing. And pretty sure we worked out it was around the Manchester area he was from.
Of course. I wanted to ask you, did you find, during the writing of this book and compiling all the stories, were there any things that you learned about your father that you hadn't really known before? Some of the maybe interactions or relationships he had with some players? Not
really, no. I know what you mean. It's finding out something new comes as a shock to you about your dad. The one thing that I didn't know, Carl, at the end of the book, he put down how many first team matches my dad had been involved in as a player and as a coach, and it ended up being around about 1,800 matches.
Wow!
So we sort of worked out now whether there's a fan who's been going for 60 years home and away that we don't know about. My dad's probably been to more Liverpool games than anyone in history. So that's what you can't prove it. Obviously, that's not something you can prove, because I mean, you got like Bob Paisley who was there, but he was there a long time. See, Bill Shankly say he was only there 15 years, so he's not going to get anything like that figure because it's impossible to do it.
Right.
But out of all them, we're pretty sure my dad would hold an unofficial record for going to more Liverpool games than anyone else ever.
Was there a particular, outside of being a player for Liverpool's first team, was there another particular job or role that he had that he was really excited about doing?
No. My dad's whole life, other than obviously interaction with his family, which is like, you know, I would imagine every other person who's involved in football like my dad was, football was not all he was in. It sounds terrible, but it really was all he was interested in. But it wasn't to the exclusion of the family, if you know what I mean. It wasn't like you'd want to talk to him about something that was going on with your job or your life. It wouldn't be, well, hang on, I'm going to watch this match, or I'm going to do this. He'd help you out in whatever way he can. That was the whole family type of thing. But it really, if someone said to me, what other interests did your dad have? I said, none. He really didn't. I wouldn't know who my dad's favourite film star was. I know I mentioned Doris Day before, but that was because before he married my mum, when he was on national service in 1952, he found a picture of Doris Day in his bag. Apparently, that's where that comes from. They had a picture of Doris Day with him on his national service. But that's the only thing you could say that he liked. And he used to like watching the Troop in the Colour, which they do obviously outside, or not Buckingham Palace, it's around the corner. But down in London, he always wanted to go to the Troop in the Colour. And the only other sport he really had any interest in was rugby league.
Yeah.
And that was mainly because when Wigan were the best rugby league team around, so it's probably say in the 80s, their players, if they were injured, they used to come to Anfield for treatment. So my dad got to know quite a few of the Wigan team from that era. The obviously names you might have heard, you probably won't have heard of, with the sport of rugby league not being that popular in America, I wouldn't have thought. But he certainly knew players, and he actually went to a couple of Wigan games as a guest of the club. Wigan Rugby League, that is, not the football team, obviously, but he got invited to a few games, and he quite liked he used to like watching the rugby league and a little bit of cricket, but he never really did anything else other than his football. That was all he was worried about.
Yeah, for the but for the club itself, he filled a lot of different roles, you know, as a player, manager, announcer. Did he have a particular, like, saying this is more fun than something else? You know what I'm saying? It's like something that he wasn't, you know, expecting to fulfill that role for the club, but then he started doing it and he had the enjoyment of it.
Well, really, it was, as my dad would have said, he basically, if he could have kept on playing, he would have, because playing's the best thing. If you can play, sure, you know, if you can carry on, play for as long as you can. Now, some people, when they're at a club like Liverpool, they then leave and go, again, sounds terrible, lower down the ladder of the standard, if you know what I mean. They go and play in like non-league football. People have done it, and it's no criticism of them, because my dad would have said that's the way to do it, play for as long as you can. But once he finished playing, his last game was in 1965, he got taken onto the coaching staff by Bill Shankly. Then really he carried on playing football until he was 65, in a way, because every day of training he'd be having 5-a-side games, he'd be involved in it. So he never really stopped playing football, and that was what he liked the most. Was the actual playing of the game, and, you know, the coaching side of it come to him over the years. And they always used to say it's such a simple thing at Liverpool, but people couldn't counteract it. They don't do much in training, they don't do much special. So, as my dad used to say, well, you know, try and stop us then. Yeah. Because that's used to start saying about other teams do this. It's like Man City last night. You know, Dan did before. Guardiola changed City's formation last night to counteract what Leon were likely to do. And Liverpool used to say, well, this is what we're doing. The other team have got to try and stop us. But it twists around a bit now. It's to me, again, this is like, I'm 58 now myself, but you start thinking, I am getting old now. But I think it's overcomplicated now. It's even the warm-ups. These warm-ups they do now, God blimey, you go to Anfield, it's 3 o'clock kickoff. They're on the pitch at 2 o'clock, more or less, having a full-scale training session. They used to run out at 2:45. That was the first time you saw them in the 70s and 80s, as the players run out at 2:45 to play. Yeah. But now they do these incredibly complicated, needing about 12 coaching staff warm-ups. Everyone's got their own coach, and they've all got different bits to do. Just think it's overcomplicated now, but someone does it and has success with it. So then everyone thinks, oh, we better do that as well. And it just snowballs from there. You know, there might be a team soon where they just have a manager and 2 coaches again. Then there'll be a lot of coaches out of jobs, because they all start saying, well, that must be the way to do it. We'll do that. Because they're all like sheep and they all follow each other. If someone's successful, it gets done by everyone then.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd like to come back to that point, but one more about the book. Can you maybe share one of your favorite stories that's within the book that that you enjoyed writing about and reliving?
The one that a lot of people talk about, there's 2 just quick ones, if we can do the 2. One was talking about that goal when we broke when I broke the window in the garden. I was in the goal, must have been 9 or 10, rolling the ball out to my dad. My dad was hitting shots at us, and I was stopping them. And now he wasn't hitting them as hard as he could, which I found out. But I said to him, you can't score past me, can you? So he hit them a little bit hard, and I was saying I was good in goal. It wasn't a big goal. So I was stopping them. And then I just went, you're never going to score past me. I'm getting too good for you now. You're never going to score. So I bounced one out to him, and he volleyed it. And it went past me ear. I didn't see the ball. It just went past me ear. and hit the back of the net. And he went, "You didn't stop that one, did you?" Didn't see it. I was stopping the others, but he just paid. I don't think he meant it till that close to me head as it did. But it flew past us. Must be going about 80 mile an hour. I just said, "We're not saying that anymore." And what was the other one he did? Oh, the one with the tackle in the back garden. Again, a similar sort of thing. He had the ball, and I got the ball off him, and then he couldn't get it off me, but I was shielding the ball away from him. I was only 10 or 11 at the time, just shielding the ball. And I turned him, and I don't know how I did it, but I actually got past him, and he just basically fouled me. And I looked up at him. He went, "You've got to learn, son." He said, if you're going to get past people, you've got to get away from them before they can foul you. So, okay, thanks for that, Dad. So I didn't really try it anymore. He used to come in limping and covered in bruises, and he'd say to me, "Mum, I've had a good game out in the garden there." I'd be like crawling up the steps trying to go back into the house severely injured, but he used to quite enjoy it. So hardening me up, as he used to say.
Okay. I train my son, and I always tell him, you put a good move on, you got to get away because they're just going to come back and get you. But now he's 6 foot tall at 12 years old, so I kind of just let him go. Now
it's one of them. If he's like that, you won't be able to catch him anyway. But you've got to make out that you're deliberately not catching him.
That's right.
Rather than he's getting away type of thing. You're letting him get away with it.
I wanted to ask you. Obviously, the Liverpool is back to kind of to on their perch, as the saying seems to be prevalent right now. But it's been a while since we've been in this position to really be the team that everybody's looking up towards. And so I was wanting to just see what your thoughts are of the current ownership, and obviously, the coaching staff and the players. We had mentioned earlier about the players. It seems like this team has such a great camaraderie.
Yeah. That's a lot of it.
It's so key, in my opinion, of their success on the field as well.
Yeah, I think you're right. Obviously, over the last, you'd say it's 30 years, so you can't just pin it down to, when you say someone's fault, it's no one's fault, because as we've said before, if you give every team in the Premiership 10 million or 10 billion pounds, there's still only one can win the league. So you've got to buy the right players. Mm-hmm. Just having the money. It's like with Man City. They've got more money than anyone else. And again, it's not a criticism of them. That's how they've gone about things. But they sometimes they do, and they beat us 4-0. So you can't say they don't play well. They do in certain games, but they seem to have a problem defensively when it really matters. It's like that Champions League game against us when we scored the 3 passing in the first half. Even the away game, they scored an early goal, and then we scored the 2 late goals when we beat them at Anfield last season with the 3 goals, with 3-0 up just in the second half. But you've got to say that Liverpool have bought the right players over the last few years, and certainly I think the main one, and it's what you saw about Bill Shankly, used to be from the front to the back on the team. And you've got Alisson in goal, Van Dijk in front of him, and the more I like, which he's not unpopular, but Fabinho, not Firmino, Fabinho, I think he's an absolutely brilliant central midfield player. And then you've got the 3 forwards. You count Firmino as a forward with Mane and Salah, but having Mane and Salah through the middle or whatever he is, we always don't have people through the middle. That's why we're having so much success, because they're not getting marked. Because he pulled, but my favourite player at the moment is actually Mane. I just love watching him play, and I think the way he moves with the ball, and the way, one thing you look out for if people haven't noticed it, the way he moves from a standing start in a direction that you're not expecting him to go. He does it a lot, and defenders can't stop him because he doesn't go the same way all the time. It's not like a one trick thing where he just goes to his left or goes to his right, or he does it in so many different ways. But as you say, the camaraderie between the players, they all seem to want to play for each other. There doesn't seem to be any clicks in the team. But going back over the 30 years when we haven't won the league, you wouldn't say at any particular time then. But some of the players just weren't good enough. But other teams, again, it's a stupid thing to say as an excuse, but other teams had better players. So we were never going to win the league. Over them 30 years, we've probably come twice, 3 or 4 times. When you're saying it's 30 years since we won the league, we probably had 4 chances to win it in 30 years, which coming from what we did in the 70s and 80s sounds ridiculous, but that was just what happened. It was just the way football went. I always like to say that Liverpool last won the league in 1989-90 before this season, and they changed the back pass rule a year later, so the goalies couldn't pick up back passes, and we never won the league for 30 years since then, because killing games was an integral part of how Liverpool played for the 60s, 70s and 80s. We could crush teams, like bore the fans to death, the home fans. If an away game, you could bore them to death, playing it back to the goalkeeper. Bruce would mess around with it a bit, Ray Clements would have it, Tommy Lawrence before him. And that aspect of the game gone, and the whole game speeded up. And Liverpool's tactics for the previous 20, 30 years have been to slow games down, and then you suddenly couldn't do it. And we never really got to grips with it. I always, that's a personal opinion. It's not anything my dad's ever said to me. But I always think the back pass rule changed, and I think it was 91 it changed. And it really affected how we played.
Well, didn't Germany win the 1990 World Cup playing like that? I think, if I remember correctly.
Killing game.
Yeah.
It suddenly got stopped. It got stopped how you could do it. And then if you watch now, the goalkeepers have evolved now into basically not an outfield player, but you've got to have the skills to be an outfield player, to play in goal. You never used to have to do that. You know, some of them, Ray Clements had to learn to kick the ball at Liverpool with both feet because he was just so one-footed. He'll tell you, he'll admit that himself. It was when he played it on his left foot, or his right foot as it was, he couldn't kick it. And he's getting caught trying to get it onto his good foot, and you just haven't got time to do that now, because obviously the players know that the goalie's not going to pick it up, so they close them down. And goalies have been caught in the last season, like Adrian got caught at Southampton doing it. And the ball gets rolled back to him, and then he tries to do a little shimmy and pass it to someone, and Danny Ings scored. So it changed the game a lot more than people think. Okay.
Paul, I want to ask you, what are some of your, favourite moments about your dad, football-wise? It's
over, as you said before, such a long period of time. It's not a moment as such, but it's the pride I have in what my dad did. And again, he was, as he would say, he was just doing his job, and he got kept on. Each time his contract needed renewing, they kept him on. So he said, they must be doing something right. But the fact that he's managed to stay at Liverpool for 49 years is basically, it's probably an unbeatable achievement. And another thing, over them 49 years, we actually won 44 trophies over that period of time. So he was involved. This league championship we just won now is the first one since 1946-47 season that he wasn't involved in. So it's 73 years since he signed 2 seasons after that one, but obviously he was only 15, so that doesn't really count. But everyone since then he's had an involvement in, as a player or on the coaching side of it. He actually got a First Division winners medal from 63-64. He played in enough games that season to get a medal, so he actually got a medal for playing in a league championship winning side as well, not just on the coaching side of it. But if you're talking about individual games, I've got favourite games that I've been to, which mainly coincides with my dad being at Liverpool. So whether you would say it's a memory of my dad or it's a memory of me watching, it's like watching my dad's team, because I've always said if my dad had left Liverpool when he retired, if someone else had asked him to have gone and helped out there, like you just pluck a name from mid-air, like Tranmere or Wigan or someone, I'd have probably gone to watch them while my dad was with them. It's like my son David, he's played non-league football in the Northwest for a few teams. So I've watched him playing for once, like for instance, Bootle against Runcorn Linnets, and wanted Bootle to win. And then 2 years later, he's playing for Runcorn Linnets against Bootle, and you've wanted Runcorn Linnets to win. So with me dad being with one club all the time, this situation never came up. I was only ever with Liverpool. You know, I was only ever a Liverpool supporter. I don't think I'd have supported another team. But if he'd have gone to someone else, I'd probably gone and watched him if he was on the coaching staff there and, you know, wanted them to win. Now, it's like Sammy Lee. When Sammy Lee went to Everton with Sam Allardyce, he got a lot of stick about, you know, he shouldn't go to Everton. It's a job at the end of the day. That's what fans don't really understand with the players. You know, you've got the team now and you're talking about the great players we've got now, and you can't dispute that because we've just won the Premier League. But in 2 years, Mo Salah will probably be gone, and he's not gonna do things again. It's like he left Roma to come to Liverpool. He scored 2 goals against Roma in his first game against them back. The players and fans are a different thing, and fans sometimes think the players should have the same love for the team that they have, and by the human nature, they haven't. You know, Sadio Mane's from Senegal. Now, he couldn't try any harder or be any better for Liverpool. But at the end of the day, he's not going to stay in Liverpool when he's finished his career. He's going to go back home, or he's going to move somewhere he wants, you know, do what he wants to do. And in a couple of seasons, someone might make him an offer, and he's getting into his 30s, and he thinks, I've got to do it. Because he looks after a lot of people in his home village. Man, you know, he does stuff for where he lives in Senegal. He does stuff back there, charitable stuff and that, which is credit to him, you know. And Robertson does stuff like he does all this food bank stuff. But the players have got an affinity to Liverpool while they're there. It's not just Liverpool, it's every player. You know, it's like people at Man City now. It's all about Aguero. He wants to stay till he win the Champions League, so I don't know how long he wants to play. But his first love's Independiente in Argentina. I'm sure if they were in a position to offer him a contract similar to City's, he'd go back to Independiente and like a shot, because that's his team. So I get quite annoyed sometimes when fans say the players don't think about the club like we do. So, well, no, they don't. They just don't. It's the nature of their job. They're playing for a team, and they know at some point in the future the team are either not going to want them, or someone's going to want them more and give them more money. And it's like people saying, well, it shouldn't be all about money. You know, if you're in a job and the people in the next factory say how much you're on, they say £500 a week, and they say, well, you can do the same job here, but we'll give you 1,000. You're going to go. It's human nature to go, because you're just going to say, well, I'm not turning down the next thing, doubling my wages. And that's what players do, and it does happen like that now, where wages can be doubled and trebled. And
we were having, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but we were having this discussion yesterday on social media, especially, you know, with the Coutinho situation. And it's one of those, you can't blame anybody for wanting to better their situation, but you can blame somebody for downing tools while you're under contract, you know. So
certainly.
And so that was the big argument about that. And it's like, you know, you don't understand. It's not the same situation, because they brought up Steven Gerrard. And I'm like, well, he never took a game off when he played for Liverpool. No, so it's a different situation. You can't compare.
Oh, no, not at all. Coutinho, basically, to all intents and purposes, pretended to be injured. Mm-hmm. And then, obviously, he's gone back now. He's with Bayern now, and we get €5 million if Bayern win the Champions League off Barcelona. I'm not quite sure how that was written into the contract, but I don't know how Barcelona signed that. They must have been daydreaming. But there's players who leave clubs with a sour taste. It's like even the young goalie now, Karius, he's back training with the first team now in Austria. He made them mistakes in the Champions League final, but you can't sort of. It's one of them things. It's a stupid thing, but he didn't do anything in that final on purpose. The first goal when he tries to bowl the ball out and he gets knocked in, you can't excuse it. But at the end of the day, and you know, I don't know what my dad would have thought of it if, you know, Bruce had done it or Clem had done it or something, but it wasn't something he did on purpose. And I think a lot of it. But then you watch him in Turkey, and he's doing similar things when he's been on loan at Besiktas. He's been doing similar sorts of things. But he probably won't play for us again. Now, whether we sign another goalkeeper or not, but you're right in what you're saying. The difference with Coutinho and Suarez, up to a point, Suarez did it as well. Yeah. He wanted to go. So he started messing around as a blanket phrase for, you know, all the stuff that you can do behind the scenes and not do your training properly, and you can even be disruptive. You can disrupt the training as well as, not doing the training properly and disrupting training are two different things. Now, Coutinho, to all intents and purposes, pretended to be hurt, which was the wrong thing to do, because he can't play for us, but he can play for Brazil. That's how does that work? His back was too bad to play for Liverpool, but he could play for Brazil in a friendly in the middle of the injuries, and then he obviously injured it again in that game, so he couldn't play for us again. So Coutinho's a different situation, and I think that's a lot of it why there's a bit of animosity towards him coming back to Liverpool. Plus, I'm not convinced we need him in the current formation we've got, because I just think I don't think he'd add anything to what we've got at the moment, to be honest.
I wanted to ask you a question. I forgot to ask you. Did your father have a favorite player that he either played with, a teammate, or that one that he's watched since he's retired? That's like, he talked about and really. Well,
to be honest, I'll give you three from each year. When he played, his favourite was Billy Liddell, who, I don't know how he's talking about the history of the club, and he played for Liverpool right from the late 40s through to 1960. They used to say he carried the team. They used to be called Liverpool rather than Liverpool at the time. So my dad was lucky enough to play with Billy Liddell, and he said he was an absolutely brilliant fella as well. But how he looked after people and how he conducted himself, my dad said it was something you could aspire to, type of thing. If you're doing what Billy Liddell's doing, you're not going far wrong. This was in the 50s and 60s. And then as a coach, my dad's favourite player would be Kenny Dalglish. Just basically Kenny Dalglish as a player, but my dad used to have a soft spot for Ian Rush as well. Just because of just how they were, just as people, in as much as not as footballers, just how they were. And I'll be honest with you, it's funny you say about since he retired. Not really anyone I could pick, as he'd say, I like watching him playing particularly, but he always used to talk about, and this is a true story, James Milner. He'd talk about Milner when Milner was at Leeds and Man City and Villa, and he'd say, he used to honestly, then he'd say this and people go, don't, you're making this up. He used to say he'd do a good job for us. We should try and sign him. And my dad would say that when he was in his, he's in his 70s when Milner's playing 10, 15 years ago, because, we've been playing a long time. That someone said something today, which I didn't know. Milner's made more appearances for Liverpool than he has for any of the other clubs he played for. So, and more goals and more assists with Liverpool than with any of the other teams people would associate him with. So, he always used to say about James Milner. So, I'd say they were his three: Billy Liddell, Kenny Dalglish, and current players, which unfortunately, obviously, my dad's not with us now, but current players would be James Milner from 10 years ago.
All fantastic players. So, obviously we talk about football and back then in the 70s, 80s, the difference, how it is now. Whether it be, the footballers are wrapped in a bubble. But like Steve said about Klopp is very Shankly-esque, just in how he's brought, again, doubters into believers, and brought the community back together as well. What do you think of that?
Well, there was a programme on the other night talking about, because he had to go at the fans after one of the home games because people were leaving early on in his management. I think we were getting beat 3-1 by someone.
Yeah, Palace.
People were leaving, and he said he had to go at the fans, and he was saying in this interview he basically took a chance, because you have a go at the fans. They don't necessarily go, oh, he's right. They might go, well, he can bugger off, like, I'm not doing what he wants to do anymore. But the fans, again, it's how the team play as well. But I mean, Klopp, I've never heard him slag a player off either. I've never heard him say anyone's done something wrong. Even Karius after the final, I'm mentioning Karius all the time, but he's sort of the last person whose errors have cost us something. Because any other game we've lost, just as in a natural 90 minutes of a game. But I just think Klopp's as you say, sounds stupid to say when you've won the league, but he's basically got near enough everything right. You know, he got us in that UEFA, the Europa League final early on, which obviously we got beat by Sevilla. Then we get to the Champions League final and then get beat by Real Madrid, which, you know, looking back at it, I mean, there's a lot of teams that'd like to be in the final. You know, you think about last night, there's teams telling you who they're going to play in the semi-final before they played the quarter-final and how they're going to do against them. And then we beat Tottenham, which is the 6th Champions League. And then this season, or last season, whatever it is, we win. I keep saying last season, but this season's Champions League still going on. So, because the teams in Scotland have played league games in 2021 season and are playing European games in 1920 after they've played them. So if anyone's got books like mine, I don't know how they keep them going, because I don't know how you count which season's which now. Because they're playing games from this season, last season, and the one before that thing. I've got totally tied in the knot with it now. But you're right about Klopp. He's got the club how he wanted it. He's got the right players. And we've got the right players in. I said, talking about the backbone of the team. You know, with Shankly used to say it was Lawrence, Yates, Callaghan, and then through to Roger Hunt up front and St. John. But if you got the back four, because as my dad used to say, if you don't let any goals in, you won't get beat. That's not the best attitude to have for fans who are going to games and spending lots of money on going to games. But if you don't let a goal in, you won't get beat. Now, obviously, 0-0's not good all the time, but having a sound defence, which I think now you'd look at it now and you've got sort of rose-coloured glasses on because of what's just happened. But this is probably the best team I've seen since the 78-79 team, which is still my favourite team. Which was Clements, Neil, Hansen, Thompson, Alan Kennedy, midfielder Ray Kennedy, Terry McDermott, Graham Souness and Jimmy Case, and Dalglish and Rush up front. And I think people will talk about this team. I know it's different now, you know, because you could say 15 or 16 players could be in the starting 11 on a regular basis, because, you know, like Origi, some of the goals he scored have been absolutely crucial goals. So, but at that time in 78-79, it was like Davy Fairclough, Davy Johnson, people like that in the substitutes role. And obviously there was defenders at the time and midfield players as well for various other reasons. But that's my favourite Liverpool team. And this one's running it close now, because there's a few of these players will go into... people put things on Facebook and that, name your favourite Liverpool team, and it's all got... Everyone puts like Van Dijk and Alisson in goal. And I always put the 78-79 team down. And everyone goes, well, you've got Alan Kennedy above Andy Robbo and that. Well, as a team, that was the best team I ever saw. So I was only 17, I was lucky. But then you get to 1990, the last time we won it, I was 28 then, and you think, well, you know, we might win it next year, but we'll win it. And I'm 58 now, and you think, Christ, if we don't win it for another 30 years, I'll be 88. So I don't think I'll be sitting here then talking to people about what's going on if I'm still here at 88. I don't know whether you want to be or not, actually, when you see some of the things that go on, but yeah, that's a different story.
But that's one of the reasons why we love this game so much, is that you can have these discussions and say this team was better than this team. You know, maybe the players are more technical now, but you know, it's
this
different.
Team would be 79, you know, I don't know, because, you know, probably they'd have a chance now because they'd all be in the late 60s now,
yeah.
50s. You might be, of course. Well, I don't know quite. I know what you mean. It doesn't quite work like that. But it's like one of the things. Again, we talked about social media before, just not destroying things. But you're not allowed to have an opinion now. If you put on, I think Ian Rush was better than Mo Salah, you get told in no uncertain terms that you're wrong. It's not that you've got a different opinion to someone else. You're not allowed to have opinions. You're right or wrong, and then other people put down, well, I don't think that's right. Well, you have your... I was arguing, there was a fella in Goa, Goa in India, when Emre Can played for Liverpool, me and my son had what you might call an irrational dislike for Emre Can for whatever reason. Well, he's one of the last Liverpool players we didn't like, and neither of us liked him. And we put down, when he went to Turkey first, then we thought, I'm glad he's left. We're made up, he's gone. He's one of the few players that actually pleased to see go. And you're getting absolute pelters, and a lot of it was from Goa in India. So I don't know if he's got a fan club over there, but I was getting messages, and some of the things I was getting called. Where the wife won't let me argue on Twitter, so I have to. My Twitter name is Paul Moran 62, so you can't hide behind it. So you can't put not what you're thinking, but sometimes you've got to rein in what you're saying or how you want to react to things, because it's in a good way, because people go, well, that's Ronnie Moran's son.
Yeah.
So you don't put what you would put if you were, Liverpool fan 62 or something, where you could put down what you were thinking or what you wanted to say. So
I feel like that sometimes as well, because we have this podcast, but I'm also the president of the supporters club. So I can't really say the things on that group that I'd like to say. And because, that's more representative of the club.
You can, as I say, you can have your opinions, but in everything now, it's the same. I don't get involved with politics or anything, certainly not in England anyway, Boris in charge, but that's no criticism of anyone who does. But you're not allowed to have an opinion. It's just, if you say something different to anyone else, you get absolute. It's even like, these people, I don't know whether you follow it there in America, you will be, because it started there, I think. But this Black Lives Matter thing, and some people aren't kneeling down before games, and people aren't kneeling down before motor races, Formula One and that, and some of the things that are being said about them, it's not right. It's just they've got a different opinion to people who are, and you do what you want to do, as long as you're not, throwing firebombs into someone's house. It don't mean do what you want to do, but having opinions is a different thing to what people are allowed to do now. It's a crazy world now. You're just not allowed to say what you think. Certainly in certain media outlets, which you probably know about yourself because you're dealing with them yourself. So you have to remember where you are sometimes.
Yeah, you have to bite your bottom lip
Yeah,
quite a few times. Yeah, there's just too many keyboard warriors around.
That's it. There is. Yeah.
Just love to slate people just to slate them. But
you notice all of them haven't got their proper name as the header either.
Right.
Yeah, the good thing is you can kind of look them up.
Yeah, that's it. You don't need to really. Just ignore them's the best way. That's what I say. That's what we try and do. So as my nephew, my dad's 2 grandkids, obviously my son David, he's got his name on his Twitter, and his other grandson Ian Johnson, he's down as Johnson Ian. So we had the rule that you weren't allowed to have, unless they have actually got Twitter accounts with different names that we don't know about.
Yeah.
But the ones they use most of the time certainly got their own names on, so they can't start arguing with people. We don't want to anyway. There's no point in it. It's basically a pointless exercise anyway, to be fair. But
hey, Paul, as we're winding down our podcast, I wanted to ask you what your expectations are for this club going into the next season. Obviously, it's going to start here in probably less than 2 weeks, for the cup match. And
we're playing Arsenal on it's the 29th.
Yeah, so and then the league starts on September 12th. So I just wanted to see what your thoughts were going into this next season. Do you feel like the chase for the title will be a little closer than it was this year,
well, hopefully not. Mm-hmm. Hopefully we just
not either.
stroll away with it and destroy. We win the first 30 games again, or whatever it was last season, or 29 games. Don't lose. I mean, we can't get beat by Watford now, so that's another bonus.
Yeah,
because obviously they managed to get relegated, so they can't beat us next season and pretend they've won a cup, which they sort of did last year. Certain people did. Centre forward, for instance, but again, turning into me dad and Shankly and probably Klopp as well, you've just got to play your first game and see what happens. Mm-hmm. You start saying, well, we want to do what I've just literally just done it, but you do what we did last season, be perfect. But you've got to see what you do in your first game and see what the fixture list is and whether there's crowds, because the crowds helped Liverpool last season, the home fans certainly. And the fans at the away games were amazing. From just watching them on the telly, the support and the backing we got, like the Palace away where we come back from a late equaliser to win, and Villa away where we're 1-0 down with 4 minutes to go and win. It's the fans that I think keep the team going. And in other ways, fans can, certainly not our fans, certainly not in the last couple of years, but fans can deflate their own team as well. Because if you start getting onto your own players, like some clubs fans do. Now this now with behind closed doors, it's not happening. I think you're seeing a few freaky results because players can sort of express themselves more because they know the fans aren't going to turn against them if a long through ball or a fancy flick doesn't come off. So I think a lot of it is that it's a question of how long this behind closed doors lasts as well, because they're talking about it till October and they're saying they're going to let half the fans in. So I don't know how they do that at Anfield, because that means there'd be 29,000 people there, 27,000 people there. So I don't know why you couldn't just... I think at some point it'll all just open up again, certainly in England.
Yeah, well,
in the distant future, because I think it's getting too... It's not being policed over here. It's just not being policed. People going to games, you're not supposed to be behind closed doors, and as you're saying before, people going into shops without masks. It doesn't seem to be, other than the occasional house party that's getting interrupted by the police when obviously someone's told them about it, but them actually being proactive, stopping stuff, it's not happening. So I mean, I'm looking forward to going to Anfield so much. That's something I'm really looking forward to more than probably anything else once this restrictions are lifted. But there's no reason with the team we've got why we certainly can't make a good impression. Let's be a bit vague. Can't make a good impression on winning it again next season.
I'd hate to be the person that has to select which 20,000 people get to come watch the match.
Well, it's all season tickets, so they can just tell you even rows and even seat numbers, and then odd rows. You know?
Mm-hmm.
So you're doing it like that. And they'll do it. They'll swap it from game to game. Now it works in practice. See, the thing is, someone said this the other day. Underneath the stand at Liverpool's massive now. Mm-hmm. There's massive areas, so you can have more people in because there's more social distancing underneath the stand. Whereas, again, the local team Everton, with their ground being as it is, there's no room really underneath the stand, so they can't have as many people in as you can get into Anfield because of the space in the surroundings, the area surrounding the stand. Mm-hmm. So that won't go down well if they're told they can't have half and we can. That'll be another mad conspiracy theory will come out then. It's someone's doing it on purpose because it's Everton. But that's another story as well. Don't like talking about Everton.
Nah, nobody does.
No, just pretend they're not there.
I'm
on film here and getting tape saying this. I shouldn't really be saying it.
Yeah, but Paul, Everton have been pretending for a long time.
Yeah. Well, for the team who are allegedly, according to some of their fans, I'll say, as good as us, they haven't won at Anfield for 30 years. So, I don't know, and they haven't beaten us in a derby for 10 years. They haven't beaten us for 10 years. So, I don't know how to be honest, I did say I've got a lot of friends who are Everton fans, obviously, with coming from Liverpool, the city itself. If I was an Everton fan, I would hate Liverpool as much as they do because of what we do and how we do things. You know, these last-minute winners and winning stuff. It's just you can imagine, you can understand why Everton hate us as much as they do because of what we're like. So I can understand it, but I'm glad my dad signed for Liverpool. Put it that way.
So are we.
Wouldn't be getting interviewed now. Wouldn't be on here getting interviewed by an Everton podcast, I don't think.
Do they have podcasts?
Yeah, oh yeah. You should watch them, you know. You learn stuff you never knew about football and Liverpool and that. It's quite interesting. Possibly not the word I'd use at the time, but interesting. The way. Hey,
they have to pass the time, you know. Somehow.
That's right. Watch the Everton podcast. Just go on an Everton podcast and listen to the stuff. I know you said drivel, and listen to the stuff they come out with on that. Mind you, they'll probably listen to this and say, "What a load of drivel that was." So
yeah. You know, we had Jeff Golding on last week, and he wrote a book, you know, Stanley Park, but it had to be fiction because you couldn't have a non-fiction book about Everton side. So it was
no one would believe it. Do you know another thing? Yeah, I don't know if you've seen. You know, you had George Scott on.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Whether George would ever happen to listen to this or not or hear it, he's not very well. He's been taken. Yeah. He's in hospital. So just want to wish George all the best. And I've got to know him through meeting him with my dad at former players' parties, and my dad always spoke very highly of George. So I'd just like to wish him all the best in his current predicament with his heart. It looks like they know what they're doing. So
yeah.
You know, I mean,
as do we. We contact him on a daily basis now since we've gotten to know him over the past month. He and Jeff. So he's doing better. So we, like you said, we all wish him a speedy recovery.
I think they've
28. Yeah, on the 28th he goes in. Well, he's in hospital, but 28th he does the
This is
surgery.
going to do his book thing. His book's out in October, and so hope he's up and running again by then. Because
he will be.
The Shankly boy's out, isn't it? And then so good luck to him. Hope he gets better as soon as he can and is back on his feet as soon as possible.
He will be. Well, Paul, it's actually been a pleasure. I'm so happy you came on. And a big shout out actually to Kieran Smith on the historical group, because that's how I found you.
Oh, was it?
Yeah. So
it's not with Kieran. I mean, he knows his stuff.
He does.
Sometimes there's a picture on, and I'm lucky enough to know who's on the picture, especially apprentices and the younger players from Liverpool from the 70s. So obviously when my dad was there in the 60s, I recognise a lot of the players from that era that didn't go on to have careers with Liverpool. So sometimes Kieran, I'll say to him, that's so-and-so, and he's always made up if you help him out with stuff like that. So no, I've not met him, but I've spoken to him a few times, as you say. So he knows his stuff, certainly. He's got a lot of stuff going on.
We had him on our podcast recently, and he does know his stuff, and so we appreciate his efforts on expanding the history of Liverpool and sharing it on his different medias. And we enjoy seeing you on his group posting things as well. So we really thank you.
Find the odd thing we can show you. It's I was just glad to be able to keep my dad's. Not that I have to do it on a personal level, but a lot of other people do it as well. But it's nice to see my dad in the stuff like that, because it's obviously keeps his memory alive for us. Not that you need that for it, but it's other people finding out about my dad. It's like people don't think he played for the first team. Played 379 games, so it's not someone, he didn't just play 10 games and then go on the coaching staff. He played a lot of games. Actually, finishing shortly, his last game was against Inter Milan in the European Cup semi-final, second leg in 1965. So if you're going to play your last game for Liverpool, other than the final, it's not bad playing at Inter Milan at the San Siro away in front of 75,000 screaming Italians. So that was his last game as a professional footballer. So it was not a good one to go out on. Bear in mind we got beat, but it's better than finishing at Barnsley away on a wet Friday afternoon or something. So
right. Well, we appreciate you sharing your memories with us of your dad, and hopefully we find new fans of go out there and learn the history of him. And
well, the book's still available, as you say. Whether there's only one left on Amazon, I don't know.
I think there might be a couple of zeros.
Just before you go. That's it.
There you go.
Off my bookcase behind. That's my bookcase behind me.
Nice.
That's brilliant.
Private place there. That's not been planted there for this interview. That's there all the time. So that's me done football on the wall there. That's me pictures of my son. The top one, he's tipping the ball onto the crossbar there. You can just about see it. But
nice. Good save. Good save.
I was actually against Redgate Rovers, that as well, who you probably heard of.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
That was the Redgate Rovers. Back the top picture. You can't see the bottom one because of the lights on it, can you? That's a different one, that. But they're all my football books you can see behind me.
Perfect.
Well, it's been absolutely brilliant, Paul. Hopefully you stay in touch with us. Again, like Steve said, we wanted you on to talk about your dad, because, especially with Liverpool now winning the league, there's a lot more new fans that don't know about your dad. They probably think Stevie G is, the end all, and it's not. We do.
No, it's not important. It's like trying to. I mean, my dad actually retired. It was 22 years ago this year, so he hasn't been with the first team or with Liverpool for 22 years, and he's still. One of the great things was how many times he got mentioned during the celebrations for this winning the Premier League last season. We got mentioned by Kenny. I think Graham Souness mentioned him. Phil Thompson did. And a lot of the things from the club mentioned him as well. And it wasn't just that story about him throwing the medals at people. It was other stuff as well. But it's nice that he's remembered. And I like to keep his memory going as long as we can.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thanks from me.
Thank you for me.
Yeah, no
problem.
It's been brilliant, and we do appreciate you spending some time with us talking, not just about your dad, but about yourself as well. So appreciate it.
No, I've enjoyed it. It's been great.
All right, Paul. Cheers, mate.
All right, nice one. See you again. All the best, everyone.
Yes. You too. Cheers.
Cheers now. Bye.